Hi guys, thanks for tuning in. This video is all about the Show Us Your Steak challenge. This has been started by Hayes Outdoors, so greetings over there. And the entire campaign is meant to raise awareness for men's mental health. And probably you've seen a couple of videos, and I was thinking whether I should also shoot one. And I wanted to think a little before doing so, because this entire topic is so incredibly complex, and if somebody says something about it, it should be something useful in my opinion. So I want to tell a little bit about my personal experiences with depression, and I also want to give you something that might help you in your life, no matter what kind of situation you're in. And it's important to just have a look at why so many men do feel unhappy, or do even develop severe psychological disorders. And in my opinion, this is all based on an ideal image of masculinity. And bear with me for a moment here, because just try to get back, you know, when you were a kid. I remember a situation in which I fell off the bicycle and I scratched my elbows and my knees, and my dad told me to stand up, stop crying and man up. Just think about this for a moment. What does this mean if you tell a child to man up? It implies that this kid is not man enough, right? And this thought comes back in so many myriad ways in the life of a young man. Let's assume you're at high school and you got a crush on a lady. And this girl, you know, just doesn't even look at you and just goes for the more popular football guy or whatever kind of other, man, you know, that kind of like has a better status or a more athletic physique and all these kind of things. And then you also start to develop a mindset of I'm not man enough, I need to become more of a man. And then we also see this at work. You know, you have to be a provider if you're a man, you have to take care for your family, which in itself is a good thing, of course, but you're constantly asked to be better. And then we're not even talking about all these kind of images that are created in Hollywood, for example. Think of Schwarzenegger, think of Stallone, you know, everybody needs to be ripped like Wolverine. That's kind of like the new standard. So there's constant expectation from men to be tougher, to be more handsome, to be more muscular, to be stronger, to be more steadfast, you know, to never cry. Just think about all the examples that come to mind. And what I realized is that in order to be mentally healthy, we need to find a way to accept our own personal vulnerability. And maybe this is best explained through a story that I was told by a mentor of mine. His name is Fritz, and he is from the Netherlands, but he used to study with Tibetan monks for about 10 to 15 years, I don't know. But he gave me mindfulness classes and also talked to me about self-actualization. And there was one particular story that really got stuck in my head, and it really explains everything in my opinion. Just picture yourself living on top of a mountain, and you got your tiny cabin there, and you're just living in isolation, and there's no people there, and you just go about your things. And once in a while, a hiker is passing by, or a wanderer. And this wanderer is cold, and he knocks at your door, and he says, "Hey, open up, I'm cold, I need a place to sleep at." Or maybe he's thirsty, you know, and he knocks at your door, and he goes like, "Hey, open up, give me something to drink." Or maybe he's hungry, and he's asking for food. Basically, you have two different types of routes that you could choose. You could either open the door, acknowledge the presence of this hiker or wanderer, and let him in, give him what he needs, and then eventually he will pass on and go about his own ways, right? Or you could choose the other route, which is either hiding in your cabin, acting as if he was not there, or trying to hold the door shut if he tries to get in. So either fight or flight in a way, right? And what happens then is that this wanderer will just get so aggressive that he will keep on knocking, and he will shout louder, and he will scream, "Hey, open up, I'm gonna kick in your door, I'm gonna mess you up." And at some point he will kick in your door, and then he will take whatever he needs by force. And eventually, when he has what he needs, he will just go and pass on, right? This entire story is basically a metaphor or two metaphors. The cabin is the psyche, and the hiker or the wanderer is a thought. And with any kind of destructive thought, for example, the desire to kill yourself, or the general sadness, if you're just depressed and you just don't know where to go. All of these thoughts and feelings that arise are like this hiker. They pass by your mind, they will stay for a while, and they will automatically leave. This will always happen, no matter how you position yourself against this thought. But what you can influence is the way how you are basically encountering that thought. I hope you're with me here. So you can choose the path of the least resistance, right? Acknowledge the presence of negative thoughts and suffering, and eventually it will pass on because it's temporary. Or you can try to fight it, or compensate it, or maybe try to hide from it. But it will get to you, and then at some point it will pass on again. So the result is always the same. The only difference is what you're doing in between and how you basically choose to position yourself against certain types of thoughts. And in my opinion, this already helps tremendously. First of all, my apologies. From here on I will have to film with my cell phone camera. The reason simply being that my main camera, the Panasonic over there, just died. Battery's empty, and of course I forgot my power bank back home. So yeah, that's what I have to deal with right now. Can't really change the situation. I'm really sorry. I hope the audio and the video will nevertheless turn out alright. So every thought is kind of like a wanderer that passes by and will eventually get into your head, but will also pass on. This is just what happens in any case. Every thought is temporary. The only thing that makes a difference is the way how you encounter that thought. I hope you're still with me here, okay? And if you just choose this path of the lowest resistance, then this thought can do you no harm. Let's take an extreme example. Let's say you are suicidal and your thought is, I want to kill myself because I can't handle life anymore. The thought alone doesn't do no damage. If you're taking a knife and you cut yourself, or if you take a gun and you shoot yourself, then harm is done to you. But the thought as such will just be there, and if you acknowledge its presence, it will be less harsh, and at some point it will just go away again. If you just allow it to be for a moment, okay? But if you're trying to run away from this, and run away from your problems, and run away from whatever distress you're in, it will at some point get to you, and it will be really brutal, and it could potentially do something to you. Makes sense, right? So yeah, back to the entire thing about expectations. That's the same thing. Those expectations that are put on men, for example, again, like to be muscular, and to be strong, and to be never crying, and to be steadfast, and to just, be an alpha male, as some call it. It's also just a thought. And if you don't like something about yourself or your life, or you're just, afraid that you can't pay the bills, or you are just afraid that people might not like you, or you're afraid that people might be judging you, then all of these things are also just thoughts, right? I hope you really do follow me in this here. I know that it goes down a lot of different paths, but the underlying mechanism is the same, right? It's always about thoughts coming into your head, and then about you taking a position in the sense that you could either decide to acknowledge them, to be mindful and to accept them for a certain period of time, and then they will pass. Or you could always fight against them, or you could try to run away from them, and by that create friction in your psyche. At least that's my opinion. And if I look into the world, I do see this in basically every situation of life. And I think, if we're honest, there's a certain truth in it, right? Maybe it's not an absolute truth, but it's like an idea that could help us to change our focus with which we look at the world. And that's the next thing that I want to share with you. Everything is about focus. Because again, if you're unable to pay your bills, and you're just like, oh my god, how am I going to do this, you know, and you're completely freaking out, then this is usually based on you focusing on the problem. But you could also decide to just breathe in, take a break, and then to look at a different perspective, you know, what could I change in order to get my life back on track? It's also the same thing with social anxiety, for example. If people cannot handle talking to strangers, or if they just can't be with bigger groups of people because something happens in their head, I think that they just should take very small steps, you know. They can learn how to change their perspective. They don't have to become an extrovert. They can stay an introvert. But what they can always do is to basically accept who they are without judging themselves for not being the extrovert, if that makes sense, right? So yeah, I hope that this all makes sense to you, and I hope that this might help you in changing your own life to the better. Because for me personally, it worked perfectly fine, and especially that metaphor that Fritz was telling me. It's just a beautiful story, because in the end, this is something you will encounter countless times in your life. And yeah, if you do have a more severe mental illness, so let's say, for example, you're schizophrenic or so, and you need treatment and maybe even medication, of course do consider this. You know, professional help is always good. It's never wrong to ask somebody for help, and it's never wrong to reach out. Actually, you should always do this if something's going on, okay? But yeah, that's kind of like my take on this entire subject. I really think that if we are simplifying our lives, and if we just accept ourselves as who we are, and with all our imperfections, and with all our vulnerabilities, and with all our doubts, then we can get mentally healthy, because we align with who we truly are, rather than always reaching out to an ideal image we create ourselves, or we let other people create for us, but we can never really reach. So yeah, that's kind of like my take on it. I don't know if you have any remarks. If you do, just drop me a comment below. If you think that this is all complete nonsense and you fully disagree, please share your view, you know, let's have a dialogue about this. If you want to add something to this, or if you have a question, also just drop a comment below, okay? Would be really nice to just start exchanging ideas, because the world is getting really, really unhealthy these days. No matter if we're talking about climate, if we're talking about society as a whole, everything is kind of like twisted. We can do better. So let's have a dialogue and see what we can work out, okay? Yeah, that said, just to wrap it up, I also should nominate somebody, because of course other people also should shoot a video, and I'm nominating 3 channels. One is Fox Scout Survival, the second one is Thomas Rall, Natur erleben, Prävention erstreben, and the third would be Smooth Gefixed. So if you guys are watching and you want to say something about this topic, I would kindly ask you to just consider shooting a video. You know, share your opinion with the world and raise the awareness for men's mental health, okay? So yeah, I'm going to wrap it up right here. I'm just going to get back to my overnighter. Tonight I'm going to sleep in the first snow we have here in the Netherlands since this winter, and I'm just going to make the best out of it. So yeah, I hope I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Stay mentally healthy, and up until then, have a good one. Bye bye.